This is the Drake Insights Podcast, your weekly dose of cutting-edge senior living marketing insights. Join me, your host, Natasha Drake, for bold ideas, proven strategies, and inspiring stories straight from the experts. Tune in and let's conquer the senior living marketing landscape together. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Drake Insights Podcast. I am your host, Natasha Drake from Drake Strategic. Let's get started. So on today's episode, I'm so excited to welcome another woman entrepreneur onto the show. This has just been so exciting this year to see how many great entrepreneurs, women leaders in senior living are coming out. And I'm excited to bring on Kiera DesChamps, sales strategist, entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and now author. We'll get into that shortly. So excited to have you on. She's going to talk a little bit about how she helps accelerate the senior living sales cycle, helping sales teams stay in the selling zone, which I've been talking a lot about this year in terms of helping set up sales teams for success. Let's give them the tools in the toolbox. Let's give them the support they need so they can focus on building those relationships. We're also going to dig into her upcoming book, which is coming out August 28th as well, called After the Tour, Guiding Prospects from Interest to Action. So we're going to dig a little bit into that. But before that, I want to hear a little bit about you and your story. So if you wouldn't mind, Kiera, for those that don't know you, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and if you can share a little bit of your history and your journey and what got you here today, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much. Entrepreneur yourself,
Yes.
Boss lady leader yourself.
Thank you.
It's an honor for me to be in your presence. So
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you allowing me to be on your platform. And then as you're saying all those things, I'm like, entrepreneur, that didn't even sound, it just sounds so foreign to me. And then when you said author, I'm like, okay, I've heard the words teacher. I'm an educator, trainer, mentor, business leader, all those things. But then you added author and entrepreneur, and I'm like, oh, I do that too.
Yeah, a lot. It's a lot. It's amazing. Tell us how and how you got here.
Yes. Well, it's something that I can honestly say friends, especially my husband, my mom, my family members, people who've been around me for a long time have always said, why aren't you doing this yourself? Or, you could train, you could teach, you could coach, you could do these things. And I just felt like I would hear it and go, yeah, I probably could. But wherever I was at that time, I just enjoyed, being a part of the higher education system, or I was a nonprofit system, or, in the corporate field, whatever I was doing, at the end of the day, it's really about timing. And it really wasn't my time. And I feel like everything that I've done has led me to this point. So it wasn't something I really just sat down and said, by the time I'm 52, I'm going to do this. And then there's people like you and other women entrepreneurs that I've been meeting over the past years who have done it. And I've always sat back and admired it, but always thought, I don't know if I could ever do that, but just that inspiration and seeing that happen really inspired me to get where I am today.
Yeah.
So,
it's a leap of faith for sure.
It is.
It's a leap of faith, and it's scary, but it is rewarding, but it is a lot of work. So yeah, I know where you're at, and it's amazing. I'm so happy to have you on. So sorry, keep going.
Well, I was going to say that sometimes it's not necessarily you leaping. Sometimes you get pushed. Or shot.
Right. That kind of happened to me too. So yeah, you're right. That's sometimes it's easier that way too.
Right. Sometimes I'll stand and go, I'll peek over and go, that looks a little scary. I'm not sure if I want to do it. And then all of a sudden your future comes along and goes, get out. You're going to do this. You're like, okay, fine.
Today's the day. Okay.
Today, Mama Bird pushed me out of the nest and now it's time for me to fly. So, but I'm so thankful to be here. And, I look back at my time in working with at-risk youth and working in, summer camps and training and leading camp counselors and doing, when I went to college, I went into professional counseling and working in that environment and working with at-risk youth, always working with staff and training and developing, always in that leadership position, that leadership role. Somehow it's not that I'm bossy or want to take over. It's just really a natural, part of who I am is to step in and, take care of any problems or any situations need to be resolved or solved. And then I always find myself being that person to help with projects. If there's a project, if there's some kind of problem that needs to be solved, oh wow, that just gets me going. And no matter what field I've been in, that's what I've been doing, right? And then of course mentorship and leading others. And then I found myself, being introduced to the active and older adult industry, which I never, I didn't know really anything about as far as working in the industry. But when I was in higher education, I taught and I was over the human services field. And so in that, we talked about, working with adults, working with children, working with older adults, things like that. So from a textbook standpoint and from a classroom standpoint, we talked a lot about the aging, industry and gerontology and things like that. Then I was introduced into the actual field, which was really new to me, but it was the same thing, problem solving. There were people that needed help. There were a lot of emotions involved, children, family dynamics, group dynamics, all of those things, I was very familiar with.
Right.
So it was just a natural fit. And me as a person, I'm always drawn to there's somebody needing some help, right? I'm always pulled to, helping and supporting people in need.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that too, and I want you to dig in a little more, but similar with me is by having all these different experiences and different roles and things in your past and leading you here, that I think is why you're probably so good at what you do and why you're able to write a book, right? So you're able to take from all those different experiences and now use it in senior living. And I think that's one thing I've been talking about a lot lately is how we can use other experiences that we've learned and adapt it to this industry and for these sales teams. I know you're going to dig in a little more to that specifically, but yeah, do you want to talk a little bit more about where specifically you worked and how, I'm curious, and if others might be too, of how KD Consulting specifically, came to be from where you were prior and what experiences you've taken from those places, right, to KD Consulting.
Yeah. So working in the active and older adult industry, my entry point was really move management, working in the homes of, active and older adults, working with the adult children, being in the most vulnerable places of their life and time of life, being the stranger, going into the home, sitting at the dining room tables, talking to them about what their next steps are, what their plans are, what their fears are, learning that they've been in their, home for 40, 50 years. This is all they've known. And oh, by the way, either by choice or because of health, they're getting ready to make one of the biggest decisions in their lives. They're going to make one of the biggest moves ever. And so I'm a learner and I like to ask questions. That's how I explore. So learning so much from what is it going to take? What makes you scared? What is your fear about moving into a certain community or building, your new home? And what about the sizes and the downsizing, all of those things. And then being around the adult children at the same time. So in that position where I was able to be hands-on in the closets, in the garages, in the basements, the whole stressors of what to do. Do I sell my home? Do I rent my home? I have 3 storage units full of things. I have, my daughter's in Tennessee, my son's down in Florida, the grandkids. There's so many pieces that go. It's more than just, I have to move. Yeah. There's so many other pieces that have to be taken care of. And it takes a lot of intellectual, stimulation, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And so just sitting at their tables and just looking at that sense of defeat, and it's overwhelming. And so we always tried to make sure, how can we take this burden from them? What can we do, as that move management type team and working with the logistics? What can we do to take this burden from them, make it a little bit lighter, and, guide them through the process. So with working in that industry for, the last 10 years, from that perspective, it really positioned me, because I went from working in the homes to working with the teams, to training the teams, hiring the teams, and then starting the corporate type relationships in the industry. it really gave me such insight because now I'm like, okay, this is only one half of the puzzle, right?
Right.
Now there's a whole other side of the industry, which are the operators, the developers, the sales teams, all the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there seemed to be a disconnect.
Yeah.
And so immediately I always find myself kind of right in between because I'm an advocate of all. I'm an advocate. I want to, I want the family to be okay. I want the actual client, the prospect to be okay. But then I also know the sales teams and I've met the operators. I've met the developers. I've sat with them and I've also listened to their pain points. And I've listened to why they aren't feeling, why their occupancy isn't high, why they're losing people, they're not able to retain the resident, satisfaction and all the things that they're dealing with. And, we have to sell so many before we can break ground. There's just, I'm a learner. So I'm always asking questions like, what is that like? And what happens when this happens? And so I would find myself going, man, how do I help merge the two? How do I position myself to be a liaison between the two? Right. That's exactly where I am. So I want to solve for those problems by helping the operators and developers to figure out ways to establish and create partnerships that, that will last, understanding what the real problems are over here and why there's such a delay, because it's so much bigger than just moving into, a beautiful apartment. And I've toured so many beautiful communities. It is not the community.
Yeah.
It is definitely not the community.
Yep.
It's not the apartment. It is not that beautiful pool and all the luxury living. It is not those things.
Yeah.
There's so much more that, we need to consider, that they need to understand that's going to help make that process so much smoother.
Well, and I think that's where you and I connected on this too, because that is very often I hear, well, it's our competition, right? When I go in and I do those positioning and SWOT analyses, and it's, well, our competition has this or we have this. That is not your biggest competitor, right? 9 times out of 10, it's home. And it's not just, and again, like you're saying, it's not, well, let's send them, and I know we're going to dig into this, but let's send them a mover, let's send them a downsizer, let's send them things for them to take care of it. That is not the problem. I know you're going to dig into that because it is the emotional, psychological, that to make this change, it is a huge life decision. You're losing control. You're all of these things, right? Your legacy.
Yeah.
Who are they using? Who are they partnering with, these sales teams? Because the sales teams can't handle all of that by themselves, right? They have to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Who, and this is for everyone listening, like who are you using and who are you partnering with to help aid your prospects through that decision? Because if they can't get past that decision, they can't get to you. They may not even come to tour you. They may just come to call. So what you're supplying, and I want to make sure it's clear for everyone, what KD Consulting does is that you are bridging that gap. You are helping support ops and sales teams. And I want you to dig in a little bit to what exactly that looks like and what that means, but you're helping bridge that gap to help prospects and families feel comfortable, feel supported through this process. And it's what's cool about what you do too. I know you're going to talk about it, but you partner with the sales team. Like it's not like, okay, hi Kiera, great. Okay, you handle this and we handle this. Like it's a seamless partnership. So if you can explain a little bit about that process, about like what specifically KD Consulting does and how, sort of a story of how you help support the sales teams what that looks like.
Yeah, lots of stories. And so let me just make it a little bit more practical for us, right? I know that you have young children, and I know that, me growing up military, a brat, and my husband was in the military, we moved a lot. And we have our children as well. And so what I try to say I've always said to salespeople when I'm talking with them or, whoever I'm talking with is it's like you're moving into a new town. You're moving into a new neighborhood. It doesn't matter your age. You're moving into this new city, for a new job, whatever it is. You get there and you're moving in and, perhaps you have small children. So you want to know where the good schools are, the daycares. Hey, I need a lawn person. I need someone to clean my home. I need a person to help with like all the things, right? And so I could either come to you and say, here, go forth, give you a list. Yes, here are 5 people, 10 people who clean homes. Here are
Yep.
10 people who do this. Who I can give that to you, and you look at me and go, I don't know if this was helpful that Kiera gave this to me, or did she just overwhelm me? And I'm going to predict that you're probably going to say, Kiera, who do you use?
Yeah.
Eventually, there's
Yeah.
who is it that you use? Or can you tell me who your insurance person is? Can you just tell me who your realtor is so
Right.
I can get, we can get through this quickly. And so it's really like looking at that. And when I taught in the higher education system, I taught a course called case management. And I taught my students how I let them know that you're only as good as your best resources.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You're only as good as your resources. So if you just have a list of things that are there and perhaps you didn't call the number yourself, you don't know the rates yourself, you don't know what their services are, you're just handing this information out. You have done your client a disservice.
Right.
Right. And so what I would have them do when they had to put together their resource notebook, this is one of their class projects. I'd always say, pretend your client is in crisis. They're coming to you because there was a fire in their home. They're coming to you because their water or rent, something wasn't due and they're getting evicted or whatever it is, because we were in counseling, kind of the social services arena. Pretend, that's what's happening. Would you give them a stack of brochures during crisis and just say, go figure this out yourself? Or would I make the call, figure out all the information, vet it out, find out who the right people are? And hey, they're only open on Tuesdays. So why would you send them there on Friday?
Yeah.
When you start to know the details, and it takes work to do that,
Yeah.
right? It takes a lot of investment and time that I know sales teams do not have. And that is not something they need to get involved in,
Right.
but they need it to be done for them so that it's an easy, hey, let me call Natasha. She's going to take care of you. Let me make the warm introduction. And by the way, she's open Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She does this, all the things.
Yeah.
That's going to make me as a client, your future prospect, it's going to make me go, oh, thank you. You've given me somebody, you've given me 2 people or 3 people. You've made the introduction, you've bridged that gap, and now I can be taken care of.
And I will tell you, as someone who has been on that side, so as a salesperson, I was also the move-in coordinator at a community, an independent living condo purchase community. So these prospects had to sell their house to purchase, right, a condo. And I was a part of that process. And I was young, very young at the time. And, I had that move-in list. I had the packet. I had the people I recommended. But slowly over time, what I realized, what you're saying, I mean, it was, I'm not going to call these people. Who are these people? No, I have my guy. I know my guy I'm going to call. And you're like, oh, that guy doesn't know. You lose control. You're not then in control of the sale, which I know you're going to talk about as much, because who knows who they're going to, what they're saying, what they're doing, right? And what they're helping you figure out. And so by creating partnerships, eventually we got to the point, like you're saying, where we created those strong partnerships and walked them through that cycle. But I know as a salesperson that a lot of times that responsibility and that duty is unfortunately put on them. And what do? They, like you said, they make a list and they hand it, because they have to they have how many tours a day? They got to keep going.
Right.
So it's not at fault for them, but more for operators and regionals and everyone to hear that this is something that will help accelerate your sales. Like you're saying, sorry, I'm really passionate about it, because as someone who was in those shoes, when I heard what you did and what you were doing, I'm like, yes, that is a missing link here for how to help accelerate the sales team. So sorry,
it really
I wanted
is.
to share that.
And it's more than just a list of resources.
Yeah.
What I challenge in my book, what I challenge developers and operators to do is consider putting something towards those services and making the investment, right? Not, I'm not asking, you to add more money to the budget that they're already, going through, but perhaps reallocating some funds, from, and I don't want marketing people to get on me, but reallocating some marketing funds or operating funds or wherever, the money resides, but just reallocating some of that and start thinking about how much sooner would I be able to close and convert if I were to put something towards them getting there. So I talk a lot in the book about it's great. I've talked to communities where they're giving the first month's rent off, or they're doing upgrades. They'll give you free upgrades or so much money towards the deposit, or they waive the community fee. There's all types of incentives, things that are happening out there that are great. These are great ideas. However, none of them move the needle forward. All of these incentives aren't until they get there.
Right.
So once I move, then I receive the benefit. But what about getting me there a little sooner? So if I'm trying to come and I'm just touring for the first time and I'm inquiring, and then I find out that, hey, we're going to put some money towards your floor planning or your downsizing, you're moving, whatever it is that's going to get the needle, like get the ball rolling. It doesn't necessarily you don't have to pay for all of it. I'm not saying pay for all the full thing, but oh my gosh, get them started. Put something towards those services, because it would make such a big difference. We've seen it. I've seen it. I've witnessed it, I've witnessed it in person, where they're just like, oh, and this community is going to help me, because I'm sitting at the table with them and they have 5 or 6 packets of tours and places they've gone. This packet has 20 different floor plans to choose from in financial package. This package has all, it's all the things. And they're sitting there and going, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
What sets your community apart? What sets your package, your value? What are you adding to them? They already have enough, right? What is it that you're doing for them that they're going to look at these packages and go, you know what? I know there's a lot going on, but this community is doing something different. And they understand all of the pressure. They understand all the work that we're going to have to do. And they're putting X amount of dollars towards me moving in with a vetted partner, somebody you can trust. It's a seamless process.
Well, and I ask sales teams to think, because you're right, it's so quickly, and I was there, it's so quickly incentives and money, and you don't even really know if money's the problem, right? That's typically an excuse. It's usually an excuse from the prospect of oh, I want this much money off. Like you're saying, show that value, show that differentiator, show that you hear them emotional, you're connecting, you're building a relationship. And I can hear you saying, this is a lot. I know this is a big change. This is a lot to take on. And you, as an operator, are partnered with Kiera, in whatever that capacity looks like. Say, we have a partner who will take care of this for you, and we're going to cover the charge. Whatever that is, right? Or you can say up to whatever, and then you say, maybe next time you come, why don't we sit down with her and she can walk you through that? I mean, that value, and like you're saying, and that support, if you're looking at even 3 or 4 options, saving a couple $1,000s here and there, you're going to rather have that, because they don't want to have to deal with doing all of those things. How am I going to get through it? The process, calling all the people, like you're saying.
Yes.
Imagine as a salesperson, if you can say, we have a partner who we work with, and this is included, and this is part of what we offer.
Oh,
here.
absolutely.
I mean, why would they not choose you?
I'm definitely here to teach and train operators, developers, how to implement this type of program into their, day-to-day operations. I'm here to train and coach sales teams to be an extension of their team, not to replace their, tried and true methodologies of sales. I mean, there's so many different sales trainings, and, different operators use different, training tools. So I'm not there to say, this is how you tour a community. This is how you sell an apartment. That's not my role. I'm the next step. I'm the person that comes in and says, you know what, let's listen out for the logistical cues. What is it that they're really saying? What is Mr. Smith saying? He said he's been on this tour twice, or he has mentioned that he loves woodwork, that he loves, his tools. He loves making things. And, you're showing him the community. You're trying to connect him with somebody else who does woodwork. But what I hear is he has a lot of stuff at his house.
That's scary. What is he going to do with all those things? And he's not saying that, but he's thinking that.
He's not saying, he's passionate about certain things. And I get it, because the salesperson is trying to make a connection. And how can we get his needs met here? What I hear, I hear a logistical cue. And that's kind of what I talk about in the book. There are certain things that they are saying that you will miss if you're not tuned into some of the logistics that need to happen and what they're really saying. And what I hear immediately is he has a lot of tools. He spent a lot of money, and I bet he has a wood shop at his house. And he's thinking about, what am I going to do with all of that?
Or
Is
I'm
it
going to
gonna,
lose it.
am
I'm
I
going to
going to
lose
lose it?
that. And what does
So
that mean?
yeah, so immediately in this situation, this is a true story. And I was actually coaching a salesperson through this.
Wow.
I said, okay, this is what I hear. Your next step needs to be give him a call, like whoever you're partnering with. And I was trying to help them trying to find someone in their local area. But I said, tell me about your wood shop at home. Tell me what kind of tools you have. Like explore that a little bit more, because that's when you'll really start to get the story. Like, oh, I heard you say some things last week about your art room and your crafts room, or all the art you have at your house. Because when they move into this apartment that you just sold them, or you're trying to sell them, there's 2 walls, right? There's 2 walls that this art can go on. But she or he has told you they do a lot of art. They have an art, walls in their home. So that's the logistical cue. Listen to it. Now what? Now how do we talk to them about the art? Is there art that they can bring with them and put in the community somewhere? Is it art that can be sold? Is it art? What can we do to help them with that, that pain point, even though they're not literally saying, this is a pain point for me. This is an emotion. No, don't forget the cues. So I do those types of coaching and getting them through that next step. I'm asking salespeople, tell me a little bit about, this is his 3rd visit, or this is the 3rd call. Okay, they're nibbling on something, or they're toggling between 2 floor plans. What is holding up from making a decision? Well, this is probably the best time to offer a floor plan. Just pay for a floor plan to be designed for them.
Right.
Just take care of whatever it is that's holding them up, even a little bit. Let's make it happen. And so those are the training and coaching types of, discussions and things like that I have with salespeople to kind of bridge that gap.
I love that. And talk a little bit about how you were telling me how on the flip side, so once you are engaged, you can then support the sales base when you're working separately, right, with the prospect. I think that's really helpful too, because from your background and your sales experience, again, you're not just, I'm helping them move, I'm helping them downsize. It's like, no, you're a partner helping them through this process. And then you then, partner with the salesperson and share information, and you help them through that.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I caution marketing, sales, anyone, what I caution them is make sure you're aligning yourself with good partnerships. Like make sure you're investing in those people that are bringing you cookies, bringing you, let them in the front gate.
Right.
I have some past trauma. Let me in. Let me in your lobby.
Yeah.
I say this to say this. Make sure that you're investing in those partnerships, because your partners, those third parties, those people that are working in and out of your community and they're moving people in and out, they can make or break your sale.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I've seen it. I've heard it. and I say that because we, the third party are in the home with the client.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, because we've worked in and out of the community, or we've been around and we've been on tours, they're going to ask us for advice. They're going to ask, hey, what do you think about such and such community? Do you think they'll take care of my mom? I have a story in the book where I talk about representation matters, where, I had a family, the adult daughter called. She was so happy when I showed up. Like, I talked to her on the phone, but when I showed up, she saw that I was African-American female. She was an African-American female. She was so excited. She was just like, she was shocked to see me. Yeah. And when we sat down, her dad was having some memory decline. One of them had to go to memory care. The other was going to have to go to AL, and they were going to the same community. And she had concerns, but her concerns were around, inclusion and diversity in the community. And she felt very comfortable asking me questions about it. And so we talked about it. And because I had a great partnership with the community, And because I knew the director of sales, because I had we'd moved people and I'd worked in that community before, I felt comfortable saying, I think they're going to do a good job with your parents. She's like, well, I don't really see that many people there of color, or I don't. And these were things that she probably would have never shared
Right.
that the community, or she may not have ever shared with anyone else, but because of that relationship. But I could have easily said, no, don't take your parents there.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Don't. I've been there. They're not nice. I've seen behind the curtain. I could have easily said something like that, right? And so that's why it's so important. Spend time with those vendors, give them the tours. Don't brush them off like, they're just salespeople dropping off stuff. Okay, bye. I don't have time to talk to you.
Right.
What you don't understand is that they are also your customers, and they speak to the rest of the community about you.
Yeah.
And I've been to networking events. I go to a lot of conferences, and I hear the buzz, and you hear the, oh, that person never stays there. Oh, that person never answers their phone. Oh, every time I go into that community, they're so mean. I would never, you hear all the things. And so that's why I'm saying it's so important that you establish great partnerships. There's some etiquette around that. I teach that as well. It's how to vet them out, how to establish them, that kind of checklist, but also give them tours, invest in them, because they are also your marketing.
Yeah.
They're also your voice in the community.
Yeah. So on the episode, I had Christy Freeze on. If you saw that one, if anyone heard that one, she mentions that too, and how she builds that rapport with her community. And that's how you get, build your referral network. So similar kind of concept. I totally agree with that 100%, especially in today's world, right? You can Google AI, look up everything, get a list of things, and you have no idea. You're going off Google reviews, but we truly want that human reaction, that human touch.
Oh, yeah.
You've worked with them, you know them. And so I think that's great for people to hear that not only can they partner with you and you do that process because you're an expert at it, you know how to vet, right?
Absolutely.
But also you coach teams on how to vet. And I think that's really cool that you do both options to help support sales teams on how to do that, because not everyone knows the best way to do that.
Yeah.
How and what to look for.
And I'm big on relationships, building genuine, authentic relationships. Like I said, I've spent a lot of time in communities, not just with, the customer, but definitely with the teams. And I'm an observer. And when I go to these big conferences like Leading Age, or, when it was Argentum and just other, I like to sit in on those sessions, because that helps me to learn the business. Right. That helps me to learn the business of senior living. And I would always coach my sales teams on, when you learn and understand the business of senior living, then you'll start to learn what the pain points are and how to make those responses. What is it that they're struggling with? So I'm always listening out for, what the changes are, why people are moving in, why they're not moving, why they're living at home, and why they're waiting. So I'm always learning these things so that I can, pivot at any moment and to be able to serve. And how can I be of value? How can I be an extension to your team? How can I help be your eyes and ears and give you the, those solutions for those blind spots?
And I think that's important. I wanted to touch on that. So you're a keynote speaker. You've done a lot of speaking engagements. I want to dig into that a little bit. So you not only do all of this support in terms of helping move the sales forward, but you also do ethics, culture-based trainings. I think that's important for people to hear, because again, sometimes when you bring someone in who does that, who doesn't have the experience in senior living, right? Coming from a different, may not have the same viewpoint as you have. So can you talk a little bit about that and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. So really, as I train and teach and talk and all things, I'm really big on the holistic approach. So I look at all pieces. This book has to do with senior, active and aging adults, right? Senior living, that piece. But that's not all I do. Like you said, I develop curriculum. I do coaching on leadership, ethical leadership training, cultural sensitivity training. I just did a workshop on establishing, relationships and connection by being authentic. Learning how to work through conflict in jobs and things like that. So, there's so much happening out there in the world right now, but we have to also focus on the end goal, right? What the mission is, the vision, purpose, but we could get caught up in some of the conflicts between employees, some of the diversity type things that are happening still. Sometimes you can't say certain topics, certain lines, but it still happens, right? It's still there's cultural sensitivity, and there's really just learning how to have real conversations, even on the job. I'm not looking to make best friends. We're not out there like, oh, I'm going to work to make a best friend,
right?
But I do have to work with this person. I do have to work with these people, and how can we have to build trust with and have trusting working relationships, so that we can, grow and expand whatever our mission and purpose is.
Well,
so I love, go ahead.
Oh, no, I say, well, I hate to say this, but I feel like we had COVID, right? People were going back home. People are now going back to the office, right? And a lot of times I hate to admit that, but right, it's relearning culture and ethics and human interaction. I just talked about that last week with Matt Reiners. Like, we have all this digital and AI, but it's like, we need to be human again. And sometimes you need a little kickstart from Kiera to help you through that process. So
absolutely,
I think that's really helpful and guides.
And just being able to establish an environment of trust.
Yeah.
I did a little post a couple of weeks ago about your values, and establishing what are those values that you take with you everywhere you go. I don't 100%. Care if you're in the grocery store or at work, everywhere you go, there you are, right?
Yeah.
And so what are those values, and being able to establish those, but also be able to share them with your coworkers and respect each other's values, and be able to have, establish a relationship where you can have good, healthy conversations. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know the person you're sitting next to, I mean, it's going to be really hard to work with them, not offend them, have respect for their culture and their background and where they come from, the dynamics. I mean, it makes a big deal. And at the end of the day, it does impact, either positively or negatively impacts our customers.
Yeah.
So it definitely has a reflection. I mean, you look at some emails and you're like, oh, that person's mad,
Right. And that's why And that's why a lot of times I always say how I like to go visit my clients and visit my communities and things like that. And that's another reason why, not only because I want to see it and I want to know the community, but really it's because I want to know who I'm partnering with.
Oh,
absolutely. And via email and virtual is harder. When you go in person and you really get to build a relationship, go out, have lunch, we have dinner, whatever, get to know them, we will then have a stronger partnership moving forward.
Oh yes, because then you'll learn the vulnerabilities, the things that they fear, or how can I really help you? I just did that with a client, and yesterday just spent the day just connecting with the sales team, just talked football, we talked kids, we talked. Of course, I'm going to talk about my granddaughters. Like, we talk all the things, and then then of course we get to work, right? But one of my values, which are 3, one of my values is having fun. Like, I got to have fun. I don't care what I'm doing. There needs to be some fun happening somewhere.
Yes. Let's make it happen.
I can't function.
That's why I need a little Kiera in my life, so I can have more fun.
I did want to mention, earlier you said, we were talking about, incentives, or I don't like to call it incentives because it sounds kind of couponish, right? Mm-hmm. But built-in programs, like go ahead and have the solution. I talk a little bit about how I remember sitting with an executive director some years ago, and it was a CCRC being built, entrance fee, beautiful, big, down payment dollars. And I remember talking to her about building in something to put towards the move in. Mm-hmm. And she looked at me and she's like, Kiera, these people are wealthy. Why would I give them any money? Mm. And so dramatic pause, because I immediately said, it's not about the money. It's not. It really is not about the money to them. Yes, they're putting down $1 million, $2 million. Yeah, so you think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. They have money. They don't need our money. It's like, it's not about the money, whether you're rich or poor or struggling, it doesn't matter. Putting something towards helping me make the mental decisions, emotional decisions, and giving me a short list of logistic, like helping me through, it's worth it. Right? It's worth it. So it's not really about, well, what's $1,000? What's $5,000 going to do for somebody who's putting down $1 million? That's not the point. The point is, you're giving me a peace of mind. You've already done all the homework for me. You put it together nicely, and then you have somebody that's going to help guide me through the entire process.
Yeah.
That right there is, you can't even put a price to
Well, I
that.
was gonna say, I hate to say priceless, but it is. You're supplying value in relationship, emotional
Absolutely.
connection.
Right. And
Yeah.
then I'm going to go tell my friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm going to say, listen, do not even worry about it. I know it's a lot. I know you have a lot, but guess what? Guess what
Right.
this community has? Guess what they have built in? Guess what they've already taken care of for us? And by the way, they're going to pay for this and this.
Right.
Why not give it a try?
I mean,
That
that's
makes
the kind of stuff that I think now communities, operators have to get behind. We,
yeah,
because everything, I don't want to say they're all the same, but right, we all provide very similar levels of services, all a lot of new builds, right?
yeah.
Beautiful. That is your differentiator,
Oh,
that
absolutely.
culture and that what you're providing and supporting them 100%. So I think
Yeah.
this is the time to really, if you're not doing something like this, and we didn't really get into it, but obviously this saves you money down the
Yeah.
road, right? Because
No,
in doing
absolutely.
a little investment, you're going to increase your move-ins, you're going to decrease your sales cycle time.
Right.
I mean, it kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, 'cause
So
empty apartments is not generating any
yeah,
revenue.
yeah,
So how do we fill those
yeah.
apartments, quicker? That's an investment, and that return on investment is huge.
So I want to end today before we go about your book. I know we've mentioned it a couple times so far.
Good
So exciting.
luck.
So your book is launching August 28th, correct?
Yes.
After the tour, guiding prospects from interest to action. You've kind of already talked about little snippets in it, but can you just give us a
Yes.
quick overall of what they can expect from the book, and
Oh my
everyone go
goodness.
out and buy your copy next week.
Thank you so much for that. It is a practical guide. I was able to just give you share with you a little bit of background of why, I'm credible to talk about something like
Yeah,
this.
right.
And just the experiences. You'll have some storytelling and examples in there of how and what has happened, and some real life case studies of CCRCs, nonprofit, not for profit, the profit community, rental, like just a little bit of ideas from different types of sectors, and active adult as well.
Very cool.
There's a couple examples in there because it works. It works. And I wanted to give you some examples of experiences that I've had over the past years. And also just created a leader model, which I call it following the lead,
Mhm.
which is listening, engaging, adapting, delivering, and executing revenue. So the
Yeah.
importance of following that lead all the way through the entire process, where there's
Mm.
not a gap or there's not a delay in that process, where you are part of the process. And so that chain never breaks. So we're talking about that. The bottom line is most of your prospects are not, they love your community. They're not walking away because your community was not good or beautiful and all the things. They're walking away or they're delayed because they're unclear of the next steps.
Mhm.
They're very unclear of what am I supposed to do next. And by the way, they gave me a packet with a lot of
Overwhelmed.
information.
Mhm.
And what am I supposed to do with that? Like, who's going to help me get through each piece along the way? That's where they're getting stuck.
Yeah.
So I talk through it, and I give lots of examples and just some tips. And
That's
I'd love
great.
to work with, I'd love to work. I love work. I love doing this. So I'd
I,
love
I,
to work with people.
I love it. And I'll say to my listeners, I think it's a first good step. It's a good step to get the book, read about it, hear what Kiera has to say, take some of those tips home. And then when you realize I need someone to help me support me through this process, you can work with her on that. And what's so cool is either coaching or working with you on that
Yeah.
process. So I
Oh,
think
absolutely. I would
that's
love
great.
to.
Before we leave, I always like to end with any key tips or takeaways. We talked about so many things, but anything you want listeners to really remember besides buying the book from
Yeah,
this episode.
absolutely. Definitely buy the book. Buy the book. One of the key steps that I always like to tell people is that you are the brand. I love, love,
Mm,
love, love saying that, because no matter where you are there, you're still there. Whether you worked at one community, worked at the next community, your reputation precedes you. Your brand is with you. So be
yeah.
yourself, be genuine. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to advocate and do the right thing. And by the way, bring people along, attach yourself to those other people that share some of the same values, and just, bring it together. And I'm telling you, it has been a best blessing in my life. And at the end of the day, I used to try to please people. And it's like, you know what? It's so much more freeing when you can just be yourself. So be yourself. You're the brand. You've got this. And, get your tribe together so you can have some support.
I totally agree. Especially as an entrepreneur, that's important that we're only as good as our partners. I just said that last week to someone who I work with. I mean, that's the truth, right?
Yeah,
so
it is.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, Kiera, for being on. I will, of course, link Katie Consulting and her book here in the video. So check it out. And thank you guys so much for watching another episode of the Drake Insights podcast. I'll see you next time. Real quick, if you enjoyed watching the podcast today, please follow me and subscribe so you're notified for the next podcast. And if you have any questions or want to talk after about anything that Drake Strategic can provide for you, please reach out to me, call me, email me, or visit our website at drakestrategic.com.